Justin's mom.
My name is TK.
Hi, my name is Trisha, and I am Justin's very good friend.
Justin is my close friend, and I have known him for about 3 years.
I met Justin through T-Ting and our other friend, and he's very important to me.
Justin likes reading. One of his favorite topics was F1. So he is very passionate about F1. So he does a lot of reading and research into it. And then he could name all the drivers' full name, as well as which year they won which race, etc., and the scores and everything.
You know, he was the kind of friend, along with T-Ting and our other friends, when I was with them, I felt very safe. I felt very happy. We didn't have to do anything to have fun. We just kind of talked.
The other thing that he was also very passionate about was his school CCA. He was a chairperson of his ABA club, and he was so dedicated to it that he would attend every event, first in, last out. He also liked skiing. Yeah, there was one year we went to South Korea, and I signed him up for ski school, just a 1-day lesson. Yeah, and he enjoyed it so much that he wanted to stay there the whole day and the next day, even though I was really tired. Yeah, he was only 10, I think, or 11. So these were some of his favorite things. Yeah, and when it comes to food, he likes Subway a lot. Subway sandwich. I would use a few adjectives such as organized, persistent, determined, as well as a good listener. About 9 something at night, I was woken up from my sleep by my daughter, who told me that there were some people standing outside the door of the house. So when I came out to have a look, there was a group of men standing outside the gate. 2 of them were standing outside the gate, and behind them some more people. And then they introduced themselves as CNB, and they said they had arrested Justin for trying to sell drugs to one of the undercover officers at some location in Serangoon North, So I had to let them in. When I heard what they said, I was so shocked. I was stunned for a moment. And momentarily I was frozen. They brought Justin in. I saw that he was handcuffed and escorted by 2 officers, one on each side. And they said, we need to search his room. So I was just quiet most of the time because I was too shocked to say anything or ask anything. So I followed them, and then one of the officers said, "No ma'am, you cannot come in, we need to search his room." So they closed the door, 2 officers went in with him and they searched his room. After a while they opened the door, so I went in. They wanted to clarify a few things because Justin was on medication for his eczema. So they were asking me what those pills were. I said it's prescribed by KK Hospital for his eczema. And so on. Yeah, and I could see that they pulled out most of his things and left it on the floor. I said, "Did you find anything?" He said, "No." Then they took him. While they were searching, I spoke to 2 other officers outside here in the living room, and I asked them what happened. So what's the process going to be? How long it's going to take, etc. What's going to happen to him? They told me that they had to take him to the police station for interrogation, and that they will keep me updated in due course and let me know when I can bail him out. Probably in 24 hours. So we exchanged numbers with the officer, and then after they finished searching his room, they left with him. I didn't have a chance to talk to Justin. They were just very quickly pulling him out. So that was the night of the arrest. And of course, I couldn't sleep that night. The call came at 1 a.m. the same officer I spoke to said, oh, they are transferring Justin to Cantonment, to headquarters. And then somebody will call me again tomorrow, meaning 4th February, to update me on the bail procedure. So I waited 4th of February, I waited, and then somebody did call me, I can't remember the time now. He said, oh, you can bail him out tonight, this evening. I said, what time? They couldn't give me a time. He said, somebody will call me again. So I waited until 8, slightly after 8. I couldn't wait anymore, so I called CNB and looked for the investigating officer and tried to find out what's happening and what time I could go. And they said, oh ma'am, you can come down at 9. So on the dot at 9, I took a cab down. Went to the bail center. Because it was my first time there, so I had to find my way around and find out the processes. But still, I had to wait more than almost 2 hours. And when I finally saw Justin, it was 10 plus. Then we took a cab home. In the cab, I tried to ask him for details of what happened because I was still shocked. I didn't know beforehand what he was doing. Yeah, so I was just trying to get the details, And he didn't want to talk about it. He said, no, not now. So I thought, okay, maybe give him some time. Yeah, but he went home, he locked himself in his room. He acted very panicky, like he was jittery, he was easily triggered, I would say, nervous, and he didn't want to go out. And he did tell me that he didn't want to go out because he thinks that, the CNB guys are watching him, they're stalking him. He said they could even be watching him from the block opposite, with binoculars and all that because it goes straight into his room window. I think just to give you an example of how paranoid he became, he changed his bank account. He closed his bank account and changed to another bank. He changed his handphone. He also, I think if I'm not wrong, that's from what I saw, he deleted a lot of his instant messaging accounts. Yeah, all this to prevent any further traces of the CNB people just following his moves. He stopped meeting up with his friends physically, but only online. From the same paranoia. Yeah, he wouldn't even go out with my daughter and me, for a simple meal outside. He would say, can you just tap out for me on your way back? So he was pretty much cooped up in his room, but the trouble was, the night when they arrested him and they searched his room, they made a mess of it. So he felt that his private sanctuary was being violated. For someone as meticulous as Justin, he was very neat and organized. Not going out was because he was afraid of, being stalked. Yet staying in his room was also traumatizing because his private sanctuary had been violated. So if you know what I mean, it's 进退两难. He couldn't stay yet he couldn't go out. So he was in this state of mind where he felt very cornered. He lost his appetite. He didn't talk much. Of course, he was a lot less cheerful. He still listened to his music and all that, but he just kept a lot to himself. And whenever I tried to go to his room to ask him a few questions, or just to speak to him, after a while he would say, "Can you just leave me alone? Or I have my legal right to privacy." He tells me that. Yeah. So after a certain point, I tried to give him that space to recover, but also during that time, I encouraged him to see his psychologist more often. He started seeing an IMH psychologist way back in early 2020, but after this incident, I said, why don't you go more often? Because it helps. It helps him manage his emotions and stress and feelings of paranoia. Yeah, so he did every 2 or 3 weeks. In early 2020, Justin was diagnosed with dysthymia, which is persistent depressive disorder. How it came about was because in 2019 he had a rough journey. He saved one of his very close friend who attempted suicide. And because of that incident and a few other struggles. He sank into depression. A few times he told me he needs to call the SOS hotline. I could tell Justin was very affected because they are close. So he started seeing an IMH psychologist from February 2020, about once a month. And to help him come up with an action plan on how to manage his emotions, how to keep negative thoughts away, how to work towards thinking more positively, etc. And that was just after his O levels. And in 2020, he enrolled in poly. So we thought things were going okay. That he was managing. I know it was a long process. It will take a few years, but he liked his psychologist, so he enjoyed those sessions with me. And I thought, okay, that's really good. He's kind of showing improvement, or at least managing okay. So he was on medication. I didn't want him to be prescribed medication because, like I said, he was already taking medication for eczema. His eczema is triggered by stress, and when he's stressed, it becomes quite bad. And he would go out with long sleeve shirts to cover up cats. So after his arrest, we upped the frequency of him meeting his psychologist because he felt that he needed it, and he didn't object. We made more frequent appointments. The psychologist was also shocked about his arrest. He didn't expect it, And we had an official letter from IMH stating that Justin occasionally had negative or suicidal thoughts. The aggravation was not that strong, and they also did not discover or sense any drug abuse tendencies. So this was the same letter that we sent to the CNDIO to inform him that Justin has a pre-existing mental health condition. So on the night of 16th September, I went to bed at 9. Nothing was amiss, just earlier during the day, Justin was studying at home. He was a private candidate for O-level. He studied at home, I was working from home. And he tapao dinner for me, as usual. So everything was like routine. I went to bed about 10 plus. I didn't know it then. But now on hindsight, I know. I heard a loud bang, so loud that it woke me up. I thought, maybe the neighbors doing something in this time. But then I was half awake, so I went back to sleep. Half an hour later, someone was knocking loudly at the door and started shouting, "Anybody home?" So finally I woke up, still blur, and then I saw a policeman in uniform. He said, "Does Justin Lee live here?" I said, "Yes, why?" "And we found him lying on the ground." "What do you mean lying on the ground? Where?" "On the first floor." So again, my knees almost buckled. I kind of knew, but I couldn't believe it. So I stood there staring at him. "Hey man, we need you to come with us to identify that it's Justin." And on the way out, I opened Justin's bedroom door and just checked because I was still hoping I'll see him there. He wasn't there, but the light was on, the fan was on. The windows were all closed. So I turned off the light and fan and I closed the door back. Then I went downstairs with the policeman. And when I came out of the lift, the lift lobby is such that there's a staircase next to it. So from what I learned from the policeman, Justin left his pair of slippers on the stair landing between the 11th and the 12th floor of this block. The 12th floor is the highest. So when I went downstairs, I already saw the police cordon and they had covered Justin with a tent. I didn't dare to go to look. I asked the policeman, is it messy? Because I didn't want to remember Justin that way, right? He said, no, ma'am. I said, can you take a photograph of his attire and show me? So they did. They showed me. And I said, yeah, that's it. Then they brought his iPhone, black phone, and said, can you identify if this belongs to him? I mentioned earlier he changed his phone because he was so paranoid, so I wasn't sure which phone he had at that point in time. And the screen was all smashed. I said, I'm not sure, but I think so. We found one AirPod, the Apple Watch that he was wearing. And then they showed me a photograph of the white Fila slippers that they found up on the 11th floor stair landing. So they still wanted me to identify. I said, can I just look at his feet? I don't know, I was just so reluctant to see him because I didn't want to see him that way. He showed me his feet, but I didn't help much, right? And then finally, they assured me that it's really not messy, there's no blood or whatever. So I said, okay, just show me his face. So the officer accompanied me to the tent, and another officer gently lifted the white cloth that they had covered him with. And I saw that he was lying prone, face down, but the left arm under his body and his head turned to one side, and his face, his expression was like he was sleeping. Yeah, it's like he was sleeping. After I saw that, I just walked away. And then they accompanied me back up here, and I made a call to my brother and my close friend to inform them of what happened. And I called my doctor. She's in NTU campus, so she couldn't come back there then. Yeah. So that's what happened that night.
So the way it was structured was, I just suddenly received like a message from his mom, and that was the first time she ever texted me. And since I was aware that Justin, has like depression and has been suffering from like suicidal thoughts, it was kind of like an oh shit moment.
I didn't expect it at all. He was telling us he was finally feeling okay. He was texting me almost every day, talking about the stupid games we like to play together.
But it still didn't really like hit me until I was at the location, and his coffin was in front of me, and they removed the like covering so we could just see his face over there. That's when I really lost it.
No, I'm not playing my games. Something happens and I want to tell Justin. I'm like, oh, Justin want to know this, but I can't tell him anymore.
By far, the third day was the most painful because it was the day of his cremation, and that's kind of like it was the final moment I could see my friend, as like whole before, he turned to ashes, basically. So yeah, that was just painful. I tried to send him off with like a smile, instead of, because I know he wouldn't want me to be like crying and stuff, but after I just saw the coffin slowly go into, I just kind of lost it afterwards. So, yeah.
Imagine the trauma, the pain he was going through. And that's something I probably will never get over because no child should have to suffer that kind of mental distress and what Justin went through. After several sessions with his psychologist, in the months leading up to his suicide, his psychologist did tell me that Justin is suffering from PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Because once in a while I will check in with the psychologist via phone call to ask him, how's Justin doing? Is he making any progress? Is he coping? Do you need any information from me? So that's what he told me. I think there needs to be more of a support network for juvenile offenders, as well as guidance provided to young people who may go astray. And I'm not putting on the hat of an educator, because I've been teaching teenagers for more than a decade. So having seen a lot, interacted with a lot of them, I kind of understand the mentality. Teenagers don't think long term. They cannot see the long-term consequences of their decisions or actions. That's why this instant gratification thing is so pervasive. And when it comes to this, of course, sometimes they make decisions on impulse, they do the wrong things, and then realize that, it's wrong. And they panic when they realize there are consequences. And it's common, it's so common. I've had students that got into trouble with the law. Yeah, and try to help them, but so there needs to be a better publicity and stronger guidance and support network for young people like that, whether or not they have mental health issues. I feel that schools as a whole need to focus more strongly in this area. So what we should do is to channel more resources, train more counselors, social workers, whatever, It's a systemic thing. The universities have got to offer more courses, the tertiary institutions, more courses, degree courses, diploma courses, whatever, in social work and dealing with at-risk youth and so on, counseling, mental health first aid, which is why I suggested in my letter to Mr. Shanmugam, every enforcement officer must be trained to deal with juvenile offenders.
Hi Justin. We really miss you. I hope that we've always loved you. We always will. We all think about you all the time. Thank you for being my friend. Before I met you guys, I didn't really have people I could be with, where I could be happy.
I can't help but recall the song Vincent. I don't know if you're familiar with the song Vincent. It's about this Dutch artist, Vincent van Gogh. Starry, Starry Night. At the end of one of the stanzas, it says, "This world was never meant for one as beautiful as you." And I'd like to tell Justin that even though I do not approve of your decision to leave, I can understand why you chose to leave.
I just forget you're gone, because that kind of, it helps me cope. Sometimes I just wish you were here. It's not the same without you. We spent so much time together just talking about the dumbest stuff. We've talked about our future and stuff, right? We talked about living next to each other, stuff like that. It's a shame that wouldn't be able to happen. And it's just, I'm sorry for not being able to help you the way you did for me. And I love you, man. If there is an afterlife, I hope to be able to see you there.
I have daily conversations with Chesty, about different things, about, well, how sorry I am that he's gone so soon. I thank him for sharing his 17 years of his life with me. But I can't turn back the clock, right? So right now what I would tell him is to thank him for those wonderful memories. And I would say that I hope you are in a much better place where you can find peace and perfection, because that was what he wanted when he was here. Peace and perfection.